A couple of days ago, I spent 48 minutes with a friend of mine, and he played me a private concert, if you will. I really felt like I was in his living room. And it got me thinking. Back in 1969, I had a different friend who lived in Topanga Canyon, and I'd go up and stay at his place every once in a while. And it was always amazing because this friend that gave me the private concert also lived in Topanga Canyon. In fact, his place was just kind of over the hill from where my other friend's house was. We never saw him when I was up there, but his music filled the air and our hearts at that time. Now, I usually don't talk about one album, but in this episode, I was so moved by the album that I heard and the feeling like I was in his living room that I thought I would share this album with you. Now, it might be a little presumptuous for me to call Neil Young my friend. I did get a chance to meet him, and I talked about it in a couple of past episodes, but I think I can call him my friend because I certainly have spent hours and hours and hours of my life listening to his music, poring over the lyrics, learning to play them on my guitar, serenading my girlfriends with Neil Young songs, seeing him in concert a gazillion times. So I feel like, yeah, Neil Young is my friend. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at his latest album called Before and After. Let's drop the needle. Now, since Neil is taking a look back at his musical career, most of these songs have appeared on previous Neil Young albums. But it's important to note, and for you to understand, that this is not a compilation album. These are absolutely new recordings of all of those songs. It's like Neil is going back and reimagining the song now. Now, Neil has stated that when you listen to this album, he would prefer that you listen to it the way it was conceived, which is to say, from the beginning straight through to the end. No picking out individual tracks like you would do online. And there's a couple of reasons for this. When albums were really big, back in the heydays of the 60s and 70s, artists spent hours and hours agonizing on the sequencing of the songs. Each song had to follow the song before it, had to lead into the song that was coming after it. There had to be a thematic approach to the whole album, at least sonically. Well, Neil has created this album, and he calls it a montage, because that's exactly what happens. Each song segues. Remember when I talked about that from my days in radio? Segue being an invisible transition of sound. Each song segues into the next song. And it's kind of a journey through time for Neil. He's like looking back at his career. It's not chronological. And it would be interesting to have a discussion with him about how he actually sequenced some of these songs. Now, this is an acoustic album. Neil plays harmonica, he plays acoustic guitar, he plays a little electric guitar, and he plays a lot of pump organ in this. It's a really intimate and heartfelt album. The tracks on this album are full of emotion. Come on, this is a 78-year-old man looking back at some of the songs from his career. Most of the recordings are stark, but they're very intimate, and you can hear the vulnerability in Neil's voice. Now, when we talk about sequencing the songs, you and I could be sitting in the living room listening to this album with a couple of glasses of wine, and we could debate for hours why he picked one song to follow another song. The album opens with a deep cut from Neil's Mirrorball album. It's called I Am the Ocean. Then I Am an Ocean seamlessly melds into Home Fires from Neil Young's Archives, Volume 2, 1972 to 1976. Then we do a little time travel back to the days of the Buffalo Springfield with Neil's song Burned. The song has never sounded so personal. Burned then segues into another Springfield song, On the Way Home, one of my favorite Neil Young tracks. Then there is the lone, previously unreleased, If You've Got Love. Then this segues into another one of my favorite Neil Young tracks. It comes from the album Sleeps with Angels, A Dream That Can Last. listen to the haunting piano part. And then the piano gives way to Birds from After the Gold Rush. Now, in this recording of Birds, Neil makes it much more heartfelt. And then Neil takes us back to another cut from Sleeps with Angels, My Heart. Now, it would be interesting to figure out why he decided to pick two from that album, but I'm really glad he did. Next up is a cut that he redoes from the album Are You Passionate? The song is When I Hold You in My Arms, and it's done quite gently here. But it segues into a Ragged Glory album cut, redone here as a reflective Mother Earth. And then comes my all-time favorite Neil Young song, The Great Mr. Soul. Now, it's nice to see that the clown who is sick is still doing the trick of disaster. It's easy to imagine Neil writing this song at his 78 years of age, but to think that he did it back when he was in his 20s. And this version is very stark and bare and very emotional. From the soul searching of Mr. Soul, then we segue into the much more optimistic Comes a Time. And then Comes a Time segues into a song from Neil's recent Barn album, a new recording of Don't Forget Love. And it's Neil reminding us that no matter what situation we're in, no matter if we're having a good day or a bad day, we should never forget love. It's a great sentiment to end the album on. So that's a recap of Neil Young's Before and After. I highly recommend it. And if you really want to have the most optimum listening experience, you probably should listen to it on headphones. That way, Neil Young will be right in your head. Now, this is the point in episodes where I normally would lead you to Spotify and tell you that there's a playlist where you can listen to all these songs. Well, Neil Young had a grand falling out with Spotify and pulled all of his music from the streamer. So there won't be a playlist for this episode. Instead, I would direct you to Young's website. Go to neilyoungarchives.com for all information about Neil and his music. Well, thank you all for watching, and thanks to my friend Neil for making this record. And everybody, keep a rockin'.
If you liked this episode, hit the like button, and you can also leave me a comment down below, and I'll respond to you. If you subscribe, we'll let you know when future episodes come out.